Hi, and welcome to Madison Pictures. I'm going to stop the introduction and I want to just head right into this video talking about The Big Short. It's a film that came out in 2015. You've probably heard of it. It's directed by Adam McKay, written by Charles Randolph based on the book by Michael Lewis. The cinematography is by Barry Ackroyd. It's edited by Hank Corwin, and the sound design is by Andrew. I'm not able to pronounce that last name. It's up on the screen. So I'm going to jump right into this video. It's something that I wanted to talk about for a while now, but I wasn't quite sure exactly how to phrase it, and I wanted to do this film justice. I feel like it's really a film that merits its praise, and so this video is dedicated to that kind of, to this praise, if you will. So this is purely my opinion. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below, and let's get right into it. So I want to start off this video by just reading the synopsis. In 2008, Wall Street guru Michael Burry realizes that a number of subprime home loans are in danger of defaulting. Burry bets against the housing market by throwing more than $1 billion of his investors' money into credit default swaps. His actions attract the attention of banker Jared Vennett, Ryan Gosling, hedge fund specialist Mark Baum, Steve Carell, and other greedy opportunists. Together, these men make a fortune by taking full advantage of the impending economic collapse in America. So this movie is about showing the events of the 2008 stock market crash as seen by four individuals. So there's three elements in this synopsis. There's the showing, the events of the 2008 stock market crash, and four characters. Those are the three elements. So showing, what does that exactly entail? Showing means the genre. It is a pseudo-documentary. What is a pseudo-documentary? It's a film or video production that takes the form or style of a documentary film, but does not portray real events. Rather, its scripted and fictional elements are used to tell the story. Such pseudo-documentaries are such as The Blair Witch Project or Paranormal Activity or Cloverfield, a lot of horror and thriller. The second element is the 2008 crash. It is about the event, not the individual. This doesn't mean that the film doesn't address the individuals, merely that it is not its objective. The film First Man, that came out in 2018, is a good example of the opposite. It focuses on Lance Armstrong's life surrounding the landing of 69 and his experience throughout the event. That isn't The Big Short's goal. The Big Short focuses on the mass through the eyes of these characters. There is a narrator, but he is there to explain the events and ease the spectator into the life of a Wall Street broker. The third element is the four characters, four different perspectives and ways of thinking about the events. I'll get into them in more detail in a second. Those are the three elements. Firstly, a style, the pseudo-documentary. Secondly, a subject, the 2008 stock market crash. And thirdly, a way about the subject, the four characters. So this film can be boiled down to one thing. There's one thing that justifies, creates, and allows for artistic liberties that you see throughout this film. Everything that makes this film unique, and that is chaos. The entire film revolves around it. At first, I wanted to strictly speak about the editing of this movie, as that's really the reason why I would recommend this film. I can't limit it to that, though. In my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, the elements that make this film worth talking about are the screenplay, notably the characters and dialogue, the camera work, and of course the editing. And all three of these elements are based on chaos. I'm going to dedicate a majority of this video to the editing. As I said before, it's the main reason why I love this film. So I will go over the other two rather rapidly. Starting off with the camera work. The camera work is based on a journalism kind of filming. It has that TV reality and unpredictability, as if even the camera crew doesn't know who is going to talk next. The sudden zooms, the focus pulls, the whip pans, the camera positioning, they're shooting through windows, the long focal lengths, and the number of cameras on the same action. It makes for a very journalistic, news kind of style of film. Next, the screenplay. It's based off of Michael Lewis's New York bestseller, adapted into the screenplay by Charles Randolph. He received an Oscar for the film in 2016.
And the Oscar goes to Charles Randolph and Adam McKay, The Big Short.
There's a reason for that. This part is no different from the last. It's based on chaos. The switching between scenes, the characters that have no relation, or not yet, it goes fast. And that translates to the fast-paced dialogue.
So Mike Burry, who gets his hair cut at Supercuts and doesn't wear shoes, knows more than Alan Greenspan.
Dr. Mike Burry, yes he does.
Now, I said before that this film is not about the individual, it's about the mass. We still follow 4 different characters that have separate goals, separate states of mind, and separate ways of going about them. Michael Burry, played by Christian Bale, is simply looking out for his business's money and the value they can gain. Jared Venet, played by Ryan Gosling, wants money, and he's ready for anything to get it. Mark Baum, played by Steve Carell, wants to believe there is still some good in the system, and he will fight the wrong to hold on to that belief. And lastly, Ben Rickert. He's played by Brad Pitt. He only wants to live peacefully outside of the system's grasp. He knows what it's like within the system and wants nothing more than to be as far away as he can be from it. This choice of having such a variety of characters makes it very easy to show the events from a series of different perspectives. This does not mean that the screenplay was an easy one to write, nor were the characters easy to develop. But the variety of characters they've chosen gave the writers many possibilities to explore the events in the way that they did. The subject is delicate. It's an expertise. You can see it just by listening to the dialogue.
The highest level AAA's getting paid first. The lowest rated B's getting paid last, taking on defaults first. Now, obviously, if you're buying B's, you can make more money, but they're a little risky. Sometimes they fail.
Or spending 20 seconds looking up the Big Short explanation on YouTube. People study it. There's a reason, because it's a difficult trade. It takes years and years to master it, to become a good stockbroker. To get beyond this complication, they hold your hand through this mess that is Wall Street by using the pseudo-documentary style to their advantage. The narrator explains it, the character explains it, random celebrities explain it, and even the editor explains it. Throughout all these explanations, however, not one of them gets out of character, and that's essential. The brokers explain it like brokers.
So you're offering us a chance to short this pile of blocks?
With something called a credit default swap.
The narrator explains it like a storyteller.
In the late 70s, banking wasn't a job you went into to make large sums of money.
The celebrities as teachers.
No way. Whatever crappy levels of the bond I don't sell, I throw into a seafood stew. It's not old fish, it's a whole new thing. That is a CDO.
And the editor as a commentator. We finally get to the editing. There are no surprises. It is founded on chaos. But I'll go a little slower for this part. So the chaotic part that editing contributes to is rhythm. We can talk about the compilations, the choppiness, the cuts in sentence, the slow motion, the choppy slow motion, and even the freeze frames. So let's take these one at a time. The compilations. We've all seen these sorts of compilations of footage. It's nothing new. So what makes these montages different? Well, let's look at it. So the obvious one is that it serves the genre. The film is shot like a newsreel, so the drastically different pictures and clips fit into the event tracking. It's kind of like a journal where you keep track of every event. We also see the whole picture from these. We see the growth of America, the mass population oblivious to the risk, the culture that's formed, all these things that go into the idea of what's at stake. Next is the choppiness, the awkward cuts between characters and between scenes. This one scene here cuts between 3 different scenes and makes it seem flawless. A little nod to the sound designer as well, Andrew DeCristofaro. Hang on, I'm going to look up how you pronounce that.
De Cristofaro.
So Andrew DeCristofaro did a phenomenal job accompanying this particular scene. The movie as a whole, but this particular scene really caught my attention.
You know, they're going up.
I've always been more comfortable alone.
Next part is the cut in sentence. This one blew my mind. It cuts right before the end of the sentence and makes it sound so much more pressing. It throws you off as a spectator. It makes everything seem so much more urgent.
Our financial institutions are strong.
And besides that, it's just a beautiful artistic touch. A kind of middle finger to editing. The slow motion. The use of slow motion to put a sudden jolt in the pace. They're set in moments where the director wants you to think about what's actually going on here. The choppy slow motion is a technical thing. If the camera is rolling at 24 frames per second, which is normal, then slowed down to half speed would be 12 frames per second. The human eye can spot the individual frames below 24 frames per second. So anything below 24, the human eye can actually see the space between each frame. So the choppy slow motion is 24 FPS as opposed to the smooth slow motion, which is usually captured in 60 FPS or higher, even 120, etc. Lastly, the freeze frames. They aren't even clear freeze frames. That's what's amazing. They're blurry, they're sometimes off, and sometimes even unflattering, but it works. Because those moments are key for the spectator to stop and focus on what's being said or what's happening at that moment. It pulls attention through the chaos. And that kind of power through editing blows my mind. This video was purely a praise of this film. I believe it doesn't get enough attention for what it deserves. If there is one thing I can take from this video, it's that breaking rules is allowed. The one condition is to have a set of rules your story follows. Otherwise, it can come off as clumsy and amateur. Josh Keefe, another YouTuber, makes a great video on this topic. I'll link it in the card and in the description. Anyway, these were the elements I wanted to focus on in this video. Thank you for listening to my rambling. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.